So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths topic of equations of a line by going through some past exam questions. Now as always, I'll include a copy of the questions that we go through in this video in a link in the description for you to download and have an attempt at before watching this video, so you can see how much of this topic you know, and I'll also go through some of the main aspects of this topic for you to revise. Other things to bear in mind is exactly what I've just said. So recognizing that the equation of a line is either y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And again, you use this when you know the gradient and a coordinate that the line passes through. Now, if you know the gradient and the y-intercept, then I would strongly recommend that you use y equals mx plus c. So this tends to come into play when you've been given a diagram or a sketch of the line, and this is what you use when you've got no diagram. But again, you can use either or for when you have got a diagram. It's all up to personal preference choice. Now the next thing to remember is the gradient of a line. Now again, if you know two coordinates, or it's easier for you to find two coordinates, then I would strongly recommend using the formula of gradient equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now the key thing to remember that a lot of students mess up on when using this formula is recognizing that the y is at the top and x is at the bottom. Usually when students remember this, because they think of coordinates and they think x, y coordinates, they always think x goes first, y goes second, when actually it's the other way around. Now the official formula to work out the gradient of a line is the difference in y over the difference in x. Now if you remember that, then hopefully this formula should be second nature to you. Now again, another alternative to working out the gradient if you're given a graph is to draw a right angle triangle and recognize that the gradient is going to be the height of that triangle over the base of that triangle. And one thing that again that you need to remember if you are going to draw a triangle is don't forget the sign of your gradient. If your line is going up, then that's positive gradient, and if your line is going down, then it's negative gradient. So always remember to include the sign of your gradient. The next thing to remember is that parallel lines have the same gradient, and perpendicular lines, as we already mentioned, when multiplied together equal minus 1, or if a line with a gradient of m is perpendicular to another line, then its gradient must be the negative reciprocal, minus 1 over m. Another key formula for you to remember when it comes to these questions is the formula to work out the midpoint between two coordinates. Now to work out the midpoint between two coordinates, all you need to do is just add the x ordinates together, divide by 2, and then add the y ordinates, divide by 2, and you will have the midpoint between those two coordinates. Another key aspect of these particular questions is recognizing when lines cross the x-axis. Now lines cross the x-axis when y equals 0. So again, all you need to do is to substitute y equals 0 into your equation, and you'll find where the points are where it crosses the x-axis. And similarly for where lines cross the y-axis, x equals 0. So again, if you want to work out where a line crosses the y-axis, just substitute x equals 0. So let's get started on these exam questions. Now again, a little reminder, if you're wanting access to these questions, all you need to do is just simply click on a link in the description below and download them for free. So looking at question 1, it says write down the y-intercept of the line y minus 3x equals 4. Now to find the y-intercept and the gradient, you always need to make sure you've got y the subject, and our y-intercept is going to be the number at the end. So first I need to rearrange this formula, so it's y equals, so it would be 4 minus 3x, and the y-intercept is the number, which is positive 4, so I can either write 4 or I can write 0, 4. But again, personally, because it just says write down the y-intercept, 4 will be good enough. It then says for question 2, write down an equation that is parallel to y equals 5 minus 2x. Well, parallel lines have the same gradient, so basically I can write any equation that has minus 2x, y equals minus 2x plus whatever. As long as it's not 5, then it's all good. So you basically pick any number that isn't 5.
You could even not pick a number and just have 0, or just leave it as y minus 2x. That would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 3, it says which of these is a sketch of y equals 5 minus 4x. Now for this particular equation, I'm looking for a y-intercept of 5. And because it's got negative gradient, I'm looking for a line that goes down. So the correct answer is going to be B. Then moving on to question 4, it says A is 3, 8 and B is 7, 0. And it says work out the gradient of the line AB. So for this, all I need to do then is draw my triangle. Now looking at the coordinates, A is at 3, 8, so that's going to be 8, and that's going to be at 3. And B is at 7, 0, so that's at 7. So looking at that triangle, it's got a base of 4 and a height of 8. So here the gradient then is going to be 8 over 4. Now one thing I should notice is that the line is going down, so it's going to be minus. So therefore it's going to be minus 2. Now alternately, what you could do is use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and you won't need to worry about anything to do with the sign. It will automatically do it for you if you have substituted those coordinates incorrectly. But basically the gradient you should have for line AB is minus 2. Then moving on to question 4b, it says CD is a line parallel to AB and passes through 0, 5. Work out the equation of the line. Now there's two things you can do here. Well, because they've given you 0, 5 basically means that the y-intercept is 5, which basically means that C equals 5. Now for it to be parallel, it means the gradient needs to be the same. So then m equals minus 2. So then using m equals minus 2 and C equals 5, I can use y equals mx plus c, substitute those numbers in, and I get y equals minus 2x plus 5. Now alternately, you could have used y minus y1 equals mx minus x1 and use this as your coordinate and used m as minus 2, so I'd end up with y minus 5 equals minus 2x minus 0, in which then you get the same answer regardless of which method you choose. But again, which do you prefer to use? Well, which one should you use? Y equals mx plus c or y minus y1 minus equals mx minus x1? It really depends on the information that's given. If you know the y-intercept and you've got a graph, go for y equals mx plus c. If you know the gradient and a coordinate, then go for y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Then moving on to question 5, it says here are 4 graphs, and it says graph A, graph B, graph C, graph D. And it says which of the 2 graphs are parallel. So which basically you can either use the graph or you can use the equations. But if you are going to use the equations, I strongly recommend that you rearrange them to make the y the subject. But the question is asking which 2 lines are parallel, and the correct answer you should have are B and D. Then for B, it says which 2 graphs are perpendicular. So again, looking at the graph, which is, I would say, drawn accurately, it's going to be A and C. Now you can have those letters in any order as long as you've got the correct pair. Moving on to 5c, it says which of the following points does graph B not pass through, and which all you need to do is basically substitute x equals 0 and y equals 6 into the formula for B, which, if I'm mistaken, is x plus y equals 6. So B is x plus y equals 6. And you want to see, when you add the 2 coordinates together, which one doesn't give you positive 6, in which the one that doesn't is the third one. Then for 5d, it says write down the solution of the simultaneous equation of 2x minus 1 equals 2x minus y equals 1 and x plus y equals minus 4. Now this top equation rearranged, I don't know why I've tried to cross it out, let me just highlight that. This is basically equation A, and this is a rearrangement of D. So basically what I'm looking for is the intersection point of A and D. Now if I do that, A and D basically meet at this point here, and the coordinate is minus 1, minus 3. It then says work out the y-ordinate of the point on the line C with an x-coordinate of 10. So looking at the line C, well, line C has got an equation of 2y plus x equals 1. So when x equals 10, I get 2y plus 10 equals 1. So then 2y equals minus 9. So y is going to equal minus 4.5. Or you can write it as minus 9 over 2 or minus 4.5, whichever you prefer. Moving on to question 6, it says here is a graph of a straight line. Work out the equation of the line. So again, what we need to do is when you've got a graph drawn for you, I strongly would recommend using y equals mx plus c. Now from this, in terms of working the gradient, now if I pick two nice coordinates, I'm going to go for those two, turn it into a triangle, and then the gradient is going to be the height of that triangle using the scale, which is 6, the base of the triangle, which is 2, and then because the line is going down, it's going to be a negative gradient. So here m is going to equal minus 3. Now I know that the y-intercept is at 6, so c equals 6. So then substituting these two numbers in, I get y equals minus 3x plus 6. And there we go. Moving on to question 7, it says here are 4 lines, and it says which of the lines has a gradient of minus 2. So again, remember that my negative gradient means the line is going down, so it's definitely not going to be p, and it's definitely not going to be r. So then the gradient is basically the distance up divided by the distance across. So this line here has got a gradient of minus a half, and this line has got a gradient of minus 2, so we need to circle S. Then moving on to question 8, it says here is a line, and it says work out the gradient of the line. So again, picking two nice coordinates, and the reason why I picked two nice coordinates just because it makes it easier to draw our triangle. Apologies there, I don't know what slipped. And from drawing that triangle, I've got a base of 6 and a height of 2, so the gradient then is going to be 2 over 6 rather. You can see how clear, easy it is to mess this up. So it's 2 over 6. It's positive gradient, so it's going to be positive a third. Now again, if I wanted to, I could have picked these two coordinates, in which then I would have got the gradient straight away without having to simplify. It then says write down the equation of the line, give your answer in the form of y equals mx plus c. Well, if I know that the gradient is a third, so m equals a third, and c is the y-intercept, and it crosses at 2, then all I need to do is substitute those numbers in, so I get y equals a third x plus 2. Now make sure your third is there, make sure your x is not in the denominator. You don't want it to be 1 over 3x, it's a third x plus 2. Moving on to question 9, it says A is 3, 4, B is 1, 2 are shown on the grid. Work out the equation of the line that passes through A and B. Give your answer in the form of y equals mx plus c. So again, drawing a straight line through AB, and if I continue drawing that line, then to work out the gradient, again draw my triangle using the scale, so it's 2 up, 2 across. So m is positive and it's 2 over 2, so it's 1. And the y-intercept is at 1. So then substituting those values into y equals mx plus c, we get y equals x, or 1x plus 1. So then moving on to question 10, it says C is at 2, 3 is shown on the grid, and the question is asking to work out an equation that passes through the line C with a gradient of minus 3. So with this, I'm going to use the formula of y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And the reason because I'm using that is because I know that m is minus 3 because it tells me in the question, and I know that c is at 2, 3. So 2 is my x1 and 3 is my y1. So substituting those values into this formula, I get y minus 3 equals minus 3x minus 2. So that becomes y minus 3 equals minus 3x plus 6. So then the formula then is y equals minus 3x plus 9. Then moving on to question 11, it says A and B is parallel to CD. Work out the equation of the line CD. Well, because they're parallel, basically means they're going to have the same gradient. So then working out the gradient of AB, Again, drawing my triangle. I've got a height of 8 and a base of 2, and it's going up, so it's positive 8 over 2, which is 4. And I know that this point here is 6, 0. So again, because I know the gradient and I know a coordinate, so therefore gradient of CD is going to be the same. So that's what m equals. So then using these two bits of information, I get y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Substitute numbers in, I get y minus 0 equals 4x minus 6. So then y equals 4x minus 24. Then moving on to question 12, which is our last question. It says a straight line has a gradient of 6 and passes through the coordinate 319. Work out the equation of the line. So again, because I know the gradient, so m equals 6, I know a coordinate which is 319. So again, I'm not going to use y equals mx plus c. Only use that when I know the y-intercept. I'm going to use this formula instead. Substitute the numbers in, get y minus 19 equals 6x minus 3. So then y minus 19 equals 6x minus 18. And then taking the 19 over, I get y equals 6x, and it's going to be plus 1. And there we go.